Yeah, happy to. Just pleased with where we are as a team. I think we're starting to come together. Obviously, we feel like the pitching staff is a clear strength of our team. We love the versatility of the position player group. Love the athleticism of the position player group. Guys have really done a good job competing over the last couple of weeks, and looking forward to our last weekend of inter squads, and then moving on to San Jose State. So.
You guys have a question, please use the raise hand function or use the chat. Jacob Rudner.
Hey, Ben, hope you've been well. Just when you look at the schedule, I'm curious what stands out to you, and kind of, who are there any opponents that really stick out in terms of the non-conference? What are some of the highlights in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty balanced schedule. Obviously, some of our opponents have been able to do more than others. I think everyone's kind of unknown right now. Usually going into the season, we have a scouting software called Synergy, and you look at that and you say, okay, based off last year, where do these guys line up? What do they bring back? And since we were only able to play whatever it was, 15 games last spring, I think there's a lot of unknowns for everyone you're playing. I talked to a lot of other assistant and head coaches across the country and guys that were playing, and there hasn't been a single guy say that they don't like their team. So I think everyone feels like they're pretty deep. I think everyone feels like, they have some guys that came back to school, or maybe some guys that showed up that in a normal year wouldn't have shown up. So obviously San Jose State, like everyone else on the schedule, we don't know a ton about, but Brad does a great job there. I mean, he'll have them ready to play even if they only have a few practices. So, obviously the highlights, I think moving the Fullerton weekend from a Tuesday, Wednesday to a weekend series is really good. They have some elite weekend arms. Obviously, look at the shortened season, what Hawaii was able to do, almost taking a series from Vanderbilt, and I think winning 3 out of 4 against Oregon last year in the abbreviated season. They return their entire lineup. They should be really good. I think we'll have a lot of tests early on before we get into the conference. It's not, a super soft non-conference schedule. I think it'll be a really good non-conference set.
Metcalf. Metcalf.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was me. So when you look at maybe where things stood at the end of fall till now, Davis's injury seems like the biggest thing, and trying to figure out what to do at that position. Is that kind of how you look at it, or are there some other things that have changed significantly, say, since November?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest change, and then you start shuffling some of the other guys and trying to figure out what's the best option over there. So obviously Connor was having a great fall and would have hit at the top or middle of the order. And as you look at our lineup, there's a lot of really talented left-handed hitters at the top and the middle of the order, and Connor was going to break that up a little bit for us. And so I think it elevates some other guys. It'll give some other guys some more opportunities. I think Aubrey Major's really come on, and he's played very, very well, the last couple of weeks. And I think he's, if he continues to do what he's doing right now, he's put himself in a position to hit in the middle of the order. I think Hunter Haas is another guy that was maybe not on the outside looking in, but has swung the bat very well. And so just trying to figure out what that offense, defense, based on the matchup, balancing everything out, what's the best option for us? And it may be a little bit of by committee. Blake Pivaroff is another freshman that's come on strong. It's challenging for some time over there as well. So I don't think it's going to be, coming into the season, about halfway through the fall, I would have said, well, Connor Davis might start 56 games at first base. I don't think we're going to have that guy that's just the shoe-in at first. I think it's going to be different guys based on the matchups and how the lineup shakes out. But that would be the biggest, Jeff, the biggest difference since probably the midpoint late in the fall is just figuring out first base. And then I would say, one of the biggest pleasant surprises has been Aubrey Major just continuing to develop and showcasing some of the power that he has.
Jack Loader.
Yeah, Coach, outside of that first base position, is there any players that you've seen make a big jump from fall to spring practice, some guys that came back on campus and really opening eyes on the staff?
Yeah, I mean, getting Ferry back just health-wise is big. That was an issue for us this fall, is that we were banged up behind the plate. Nick Chima's played really well, and Sam Ferry's played really well. So I think we have two legitimate starting catchers that are still battling it out. But I think that will be another kind of matchup-based, who they catch, who are we facing, who's the best option. That's probably the biggest other key development. I would say first base, catcher. Joe Lampe has played incredible in center field the last couple weeks, and he's a guy that we bounced around in the infield, outfield, everywhere in the fall, and seeing what he's done defensively so far this spring in center field. He has the versatility to come into the infield, but he's been elite in center field. I mean, he's run a couple balls down the gap that we haven't had anybody run a ball down like he has over the last couple weeks.
Ethan.
Ethan's been great. I'm sorry. Are you asking me or Ethan?
Oh, you're good. My name is Ethan.
Sorry, Ethan. While you called on Ethan, I have to touch on Ethan Long because he's another guy that I would say coming into the spring, has made the most of his opportunities. And I think he's going to be a key arm for us this spring. But Ethan Long has also really, really progressed with the bat and will give himself some opportunities early on in the season to swing the bat. And, driven the baseball. He's been really good. Go ahead, Ethan. Sorry about that.
It's all good. So talking about the catchers, what are the biggest differences between Sam Ferry and Nick Chima?
Different style catchers. Nick, if you watch a big league game, I think it's kind of split. Some guys like to be on a knee all the time. Some guys don't. Nick is on a knee. If he's catching for us, he's going to be on a knee every single pitch. Nick has incredible arm strength. Sam is maybe a tick more polished on the receiving side of things. Blocking wise, I think they're very comparable. Offensive wise, I think, they both bring some different things. I'd say the similarity though is that I think you have experience, you have age, you have maturity, you have guys that are going to command the attention of the pitching staff. And so I think as those guys just, I think who they're catching will come into play a lot. I think Sam, as polished as he is on the receiving side of things, he handles some arms better. Nick really, really throws well. So I think it just kind of depends on the matchup of who they're catching and who we're playing in terms of who gives us the best opportunity back there to win.
Nicholas Huddle.
I was just wondering about some of the what you've seen about the motivation of the guys that are coming back, especially after sort of the pain of having a season like last year's being cut short. What have you seen from the returners about their motivation that was to get back to a level of where they were last year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, guys are excited to play, and just being out there in inter squads. I mean, the guys are excited to be out there for an inter squad. We have a lot of newcomers on the position player side of things, and you look at around the diamond. I think we're still figuring it out, and I think you look at last year's team, and it was like, all right, we know Torque's going to play first, and Swift's going to play second, and Alika is going to play short, and Workman's going to play third, and it was kind of the pieces were in place because of what we had done the previous couple of years. And I would say the enjoyable thing about this fall and even early on in the spring is, one, I feel like we're teaching a lot. Two, the competition every day for every position is real. And whether that be left field, third base, first base, catcher, you just have a lot of spots where guys have to come in and compete every day. So I think, we haven't had to do a lot of motivating this spring to get guys to compete. And so it's been enjoyable. And it's been enjoyable watching some of these freshman position players that missed a full year of high school baseball come in and really develop and improve. That's been noticeable. So the older guys, you know, obviously Swifty was off to a great start last spring, and what he's been able to do from a leadership and culture perspective has been great. You know, he's really taken a step forward in terms of bringing guys along. And I think, you know, years past, I don't know that Swifty was definitely the voice of our club, and he definitely is right now. And it's been neat to see him really take over a leadership role in that regard.
Michael Barabalt.
Hey, Coach. Just from more of a recruiting standpoint, in terms of how they've adjusted so far this spring and even in the fall, what is the biggest difference you've seen so far from guys that you've gotten via transfer, either from JC or another university, versus guys that you're getting coming out of high school, coming in as freshmen?
Biggest difference between the high school guys and the guys that have transferred in, you're asking? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, obviously the maturity they've just gone through it. You know, Aubrey Major's played in the Cape, and Aubrey Major has gone through fall ball and spring seasons. You know, just the experience factor, whether it be, and I think it's unique to each guy. You know, certain guys have played higher level baseball than others, and you know, being able to drop on that experience of summer ball, fall ball, spring seasons is really valuable. I would say that's a big difference. And the other side of things is just the physicality. You know, as we look at guys, you know, you look at the gains that Drew Swift made physically from a freshman to a senior year, and that takes, you know, taking all the skill out of it, just the strength. And I think as you look at our freshman group, I think it's a group that's going to be really, really good in 3 years. And you're going to look back and say, wow, those are, you know, 3 middle of the order left-handed bats at least. And you've got some pieces that I think are going to be really talented guys. But I think they need to gain some strength, and they need some experience. They need to go play summer ball. And I think that's all part of the maturation process. You look at a guy like Connor Davis, and it was kind of plug and play because he played in the College World Series. He wasn't fazed by being around good players or competing. And so I think there's just a different kind of a difference of the age, the physicality, the experience, but also just not being overwhelmed with an experience. And sometimes that fall of your freshman year, and even early on, like right now, the game's still moving pretty quickly for some of those freshmen, whereas some of the transfers are able to slow the game down a little bit more.
Alex.
Hey, Coach. Just to touch up on Aubrey a little bit more. I know he was banged up when he first got to ASU. How has he progressed? And also, I know you guys were kind of shifting him more from a switch hitter to a left-handed hitter. Has that continued, and what is that doing for him?
Yeah, to answer the second question, yes, he's solely hitting left-handed, but he's been great, and he's continuing to get better against left-handed pitching. You know, we've trotted him out there at left, right, and first base over the course of the last few weeks, and it was good to see. I mean, you know, he's throwing the ball better in the outfield. First base, there's still some meat on the bone in terms of his development to put him in there and be an everyday guy at first base. But, you know, I'd say offensively made some major adjustments. I think he's getting to his power a little bit more consistently. He's one of those guys, I feel like every time he steps in the box, he's a threat to do something and drive the baseball. And, you know, he has incredible length at the plate. And so, you know, you throw a guy like him batting practice and you see it, but you throw a ball blacked out away on the other side of the plate and he hits it out to right field. He's just got those long levers and basically worked with our staff on keeping his leverage offensively, and the power has shown up in games and obviously in practice as well. So I think the continued development has taken place on his swing, but also trying to figure out what's the best way to get him on the field every day. It's been good.
Cole Bradley.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned the pitching staff being probably the undisputed strength of this team. Who are a few guys in particular who you haven't already mentioned who have really stood out to you and impressed you the most?
Yeah, obviously there's some returning guys, you know, the weekend rotation from last year, some of those guys that have come back. Cooper Benson's thrown really well. Eric Tolman had a huge outing the last time. I think he's leading us in strikeouts. So I'd say Coop, I'd say Eric. Tyler Thornton threw very well last time out. Justin Fall, I think it's kind of a few guys at the back end or middle of the game that you have options with based on who you're playing. But I would say Justin Fall, Cam Denny, Ethan Long have all thrown really well and could be back end guy, could be bases loaded in the sixth, and we need to get out of this. All right, who's the best guy? Do we need a strikeout? Do we need a ground ball? That's what's been exciting for me when you look at the staff is I think there's a lot of different looks. And so you have a left-handed breaking ball guy, and he's not just a breaking ball guy, but a left-handed matchup guy in Graham Osmond that's been throwing really, really well. I think he's taken a major step forward in his development. We have a freshman, Brock Peary, that I think when you look at, you know, at the end of the year, you're going to look up and see that guy has probably as many appearances as anybody because there's a role because he's going to get guys on the ground. And he's going to be a really tough matchup against right-handed hitters. And so I think what's been neat about this pitching staff for me is that you kind of go top to bottom, and I think everybody's going to have a role. And, you know, hey, we need a breaking ball guy in the sixth. Okay, well, maybe it's Cam Denny, and now we need a power arm at the back end, and this team struggles with right-handers. Maybe it's Ethan Long. Now we got Justin Fall to maybe match up in a tough spot or close a game. I just think there are a lot of options because of the depth of the pitching staff. But obviously it starts with those guys that are starting the games. And we look at, you know, Coop, Tyler, Eric, and Boyd as those guys that can really get us off on the right foot. And then you have a fresh pen to match up with based on the depth.
Last question, Joshua.
Hey, Coach, long layoff, obviously unprecedented, and we've already seen some guys get banged up here and there. With that layoff, did the team have any guys on sort of an adjusted program during the offseason, especially the pitchers, especially the high school guys?
So I'd say big thing was just JK monitoring the arms. I feel like the position player group, it wasn't too big of a deal in terms of their build-up. We took it slow in terms of onboarding with their throwing program and managing the number of swings, but just managing the pitchers build-up. I think JK did a great job of basically taking it and working backwards in terms of when do we want to start up and working backwards from there. So there hasn't been, you know, a huge rush on our side. Obviously, we had the benefit of the fall to build guys up the right way, and same thing going into the spring.
Thank you for your time, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys.